organization of rising entrepreneurs, the largest professional student organization at Columbia University, with the goal of educating, inspiring, and launching the next generation of entrepreneurs. Thank you everyone again for coming. We are so excited for this upcoming week where we will be highlighting Latinx leaders and entrepreneurs disrupting the music, digital media, fashion, and beauty industries. This speaker series is hosted by Core Elevate, a new initiative committed to creating spaces that uplift marginalized communities within Core, Columbia University, West Harlem, and beyond. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jess Barrios, and I'm a junior at Barnard College. I'm majoring in Spanish and Latin American cultures with a minor in economics, and I'm also the co-lead for Elevate. I'm also a first-generation Guatemalan American who has been surrounded by Latinx culture and music and, everything about that since the day I was born. And a fun fact was that I was actually born while Primer Impacto was airing, which is also known as an infamous Latinx news program. So I guess I would share that. And I'm also going to introduce Danielle and Lia. Thank you both for coming. It's my pleasure to welcome our speaker, Danielle Alvarez, the founder of the Bonita Project. The proud Peruvian American founded the Bonita Project when she realized that while the media landscape was quickly evolving, the ways brands approached multicultural audiences were not. Danielle is drawing from her bicultural experience to make sure she keeps breaking barriers between general and multicultural markets. The Bonita Project is an integrated marketing, PR, and influencer agency created in 2018 based on a mission to change how beauty brands engage with multicultural communities by demonstrating their brand loyalty, social media engagement, and purchasing power. The Bonita Project offers hands-on experience working with all facets of integrated marketing and public relations campaigns, including strategic partnerships, earned and owned influencer programming, brand positioning, influencer management, and event production. The Bonita Project has collaborated with both niche and large-scale brands. Her client roster includes brands such as Alamar Cosmetics, Botanica Beauty, Clinique, Kubra K, Kinko, and Second Wind. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being here. And the second introduction for today, it's my pleasure to introduce Lia Winograd, the co-founder and chief operation officer of Pepper, an unapologetic bra brand for cup sizes AA, A, and B. Prior to Pepper, she was a former management consultant from McKinsey & Co., and she holds an MBA from Stern NYU. She is fluent in Spanish and a native to Colombia, managing the production and supply chain process with Pepper's Colombian factory. Thank you both for coming. Okay, well, if you want to say a quick little hello, that's totally fine, and then I could start questions.
Great. I guess I'll get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Well, thank you to Jessica and the team at Core for inviting me to be a part of these important conversations, especially now as we close out Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm very excited to be here and connect with more students, more young talent and entrepreneurs. So I'm excited. And I mean, Jessica, you did a great job at introducing both of us. So I'm ready for all the questions that you have lined up for us.
Amazing. Lia, would you like to say anything before we start?
Sure. I mean, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here as well. I think you gave a really great kind of background about who I am as well. So we can get started, if that makes sense.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start with one question that will be directed at the both of you. Lia, if you could answer first, and then Danielle. I would love if you could both walk us through your journey, so to speak. How did you get to where you are today? Again, Lia first, and then Danielle.
Sure. So I grew up in Colombia. That's where my, family lives, and, where I grew up. And I went to university at Tufts in Boston. And then right out of college, I got an offer to join McKinsey in the Colombia office. And they offered me to either start in the summer when I had graduated, or a second option was to start in January of the following year. So I took the opportunity to take that gap, kind of some months as a gap, to travel and learn a little bit more kind of about the world. And then joined McKinsey in January. So during that gap period, I moved to Brazil, and I decided that I just wanted to move there and learn Portuguese. I knew Spanish, I knew English, and I just wanted to kind of learn a new language. And I ended up joining a startup accelerator there. And that's how I first became acquainted with startups. I fell in love with kind of like the everything I worked on there. And then ended up going back to McKinsey in January. I was there for 2.5 years as a business analyst and got to work on a ton of different projects with, really large corporations, with, executive teams, solving really complex problems. And then decided that I had always been really passionate about, startups and entrepreneurship from my experience at Brazil, and in general, just wanted to dive into, the startup world. So I quit McKinsey, I moved to New York, and I started interviewing with different startups. And then I joined a startup in New York, a technology startup, doing sales and marketing. And that's where I met my co-founder, Jacqueline. So we started Pepper while we were both working full-time jobs. And in parallel, I was also applying to my MBA program. So we started Pepper, which is a bra company for women who wear small cup sizes. We saw an opportunity to better design for this audience of women that are often kind of like left out in the equation. We had seen a lot of interesting trends of, companies specifically focusing on sizing for the plus size category. And we felt like for women who are smaller, they face, similar fit issues with the garments they're offered. And then also from a brand perspective, we wanted to, build on a community and, foster, body confidence in women that are often told that they need to look bigger in order to be beautiful, or they need to get, breast augmentation to be able to meet society's beauty standards. So we really saw a hole in the market there. And I built the supply chain in Colombia, and we launched Pepper when I was still at our full-time jobs. We launched Pepper on Kickstarter, and the campaign was really successful. It went live on April 2017. And then when Kickstarter was really successful, I also got accepted into my full-time MBA program. So I used my MBA program at Stern to grow my startup, and graduated last year and have been doing Pepper ever since. Just been growing it. The goal in the MBA was to grow Pepper large enough that it could sustain my full-time salary, and that's where we got it to. So here we are. That's how that's kind of my path.
Thank you so much for sharing. Danielle, if you could go next.
Yeah, so I'm Peruvian American. I was born in Paterson, New Jersey, and then I moved to South Florida at a very young age, about, I want to say I was 8. I moved to South Florida. So I like to say Miami raised me. Miami is a very, very Latino hardcore city. Like for those that are like for all my Latino brothers and sisters here on this chat, you guys I'm sure know, Miami is a fun city. So anyways, I grew up in Miami, but before growing up in Miami, I actually lived in a very like a smaller city outside of Miami, like 45 minutes away, and which is considered Fort Lauderdale. And it was a predominantly very white neighborhood. So my first early, like being the new kid in Florida, living in such neighborhood, I always found myself, it's funny because I'm bilingual. Spanish was my very first language when, like in the household. And then I slowly started learning English. And when I lived, moving from New Jersey to Fort Lauderdale, in this neighborhood that I was living in, like I happened to be the only Latina in my class. And that was like the experience maybe from third grade up until 6th grade. And then I moved to Miami. But before Miami, and I was exposed to, again, all the amazing Latin experiences, it was, I was always like the token Latina in the classroom, having to teach every time there was like a student that came from abroad, like from Colombia, for example. I do clearly remember that I remember a new student would walk into my classroom, and she was Colombian, and she had zero peep of English. Didn't know how to speak English. And I was always tasked by my teachers in elementary school to be the one to educate, and like, not educate, but I mean like, give her the pep talk, like walk her through what was being, what we were covering in class. And it's funny, I'm saying this story now because that role that's been my role ever since then. Like I still find myself doing that today, except with brands. So I was always seen as like and I didn't take it in a bad way. I think as a young kid, like I kind of saw that as like an advantage. Like, okay, I'm Latina in this neighborhood. Like there's not many people like me here. And I speak another language that others don't. So I saw it as an advantage. And then I moved to Miami, and then it was a whole different experience. I was able to blend in with kids like me from Colombia, from everywhere. I mean, Colombia, you have a lot of Cubans out there, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans. Anyways, it's like a beautiful hub of Latin America out in Miami. And then at around the age of 15 in high school is when I discovered, or like I decided that I wanted to explore public relations as a career move, not knowing what public relations really was. I just was fantasizing that it was a cool girly job, and it, you know, it would involve me to move back up north. I always wanted to move back up to New York. And after making that decision that I wanted to explore PR, fast forward to when I started college, I did graduate from the University of Florida, and I majored in public relations, got my bachelor's in science for that. And then in 2011, I graduated. So in 2011, I graduated, and 2 weeks after graduation, I did move to New York. And that's when my whole career started. So I started interning at 3 different places. The first 2 months that I was living here, like just like trying to get my foot in the door in anything. And then I want to say like 2 or 3 months after living in New York, I landed the internship that I wanted at a PR agency that is pretty reputable, that's based here in New York City. And I started working on the beauty team, interning on the beauty team. And then after interning there for about a month and a half, I got hired. So I got hired as an account coordinator, which is like the entry-level position that you start in PR. And I started working on, I still stay in the beauty team. So I was working with brands like L'Oreal Paris, Stila Cosmetics, Urban Decay. Then I ended up working with bigger brands like Garnier. Anyways, long story short, when I started this job, I was tasked to help build a multicultural team in this agency. So kind of like bringing back that whole nostalgia of like, oh crap, like I'm reliving what I was living back in 4th grade when I had to like be the Latina, I don't know, spokesperson in the class. Like, okay, every time we have a new Latina to come into the class, I had to be the one to teach this, you know, the new student. Anyways, fast forward to this new job that I just landed in New York City. And I always laugh because I specifically left Miami because I didn't want to focus on Latin America PR. So for those that are from Miami or ever want to move to Miami and explore a career there, for the most part, the public relations and marketing industry is very centered around Latin America, because you have a lot of the bigger companies, a lot of the bigger companies that are based in Latin America have offices in Miami. And anyways, there's a lot of crossover, and I didn't want to do that. I had a dream that I wanted to move to New York and not get myself involved in that. And then when I landed this job, it kind of followed me there. And again, I said, you know what, I'm going to use this to my advantage. I'm clearly the only Latina in this office right now. I'm bilingual. And if the boss, you know, if the owner of the agency wants me to build a multicultural team, like, okay, like, let's figure that out. Let's see what that looks like. So then I was there for 8 years. I was the multicultural PR expert, which now fast forward to 2020, I don't love that term. I don't think it's, honestly, I'm not the biggest fan. I don't like the fact that the industry continues to, and I think, I mean, again, we're going through an industry shift right now. We're seeing a lot of changes, but back in 2011, and I'm pretty sure it still happens today, that a lot of the bigger companies always segment the industry. Like you have general market here, right, which is anything but Hispanic, Black, or Asian, and then you have the multicultural team, and it's like all grouped up into like one large bubble. And after a while, I just got tired of that. I got frustrated. I was tired. I felt like my ideas weren't getting as recognized as I would have liked them to. Because in the industry that I'm in, I'm constantly pitching ideas to brands. Like if the brand tells me like, hey, we're looking to do a Hispanic campaign for such and such beauty brand, like what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? So I come back to them with ideas, and I get creative, and I want to do this and that. And then for them to tell me like, well, this is actually not technically on brand with us, but it's like, well, then maybe what you're doing what you're already doing is not working for the consumer that you want to reach, right? So I think that's also why in this day and age, we're starting to see such a huge surge of Latinx and Black owned businesses. Like everybody's trying to create their own brand because they don't see themselves identified with other brands out there. So anyways, that whole 8 years of my life and, before the Bonita Project, it was, it was constantly pitching ideas, constantly getting shutting down, but some of them would get approved. Some, I got to do amazing things. I got to get some fun experiences. I got to work with some amazing budgets. But after a while, I got very passionate about the topic. And funny it is, remember, I did not want to focus on multicultural. And then it became my life. And I figured, I wanted to create an agency that was not your so average agency, as I like to say, and do things differently. And do things with the multicultural consumer at top of mind always, and brainstorm and think of ideas that are just different, that are just out of the norm. So, and without having it to go through levels and levels of approval and then, getting shot down. So in 2018 is when I launched the Bonita Project. And currently we do work with a great roster of female founded owned beauty and fashion brands. So we work with Alamat Cosmetics, which is a Miami-based makeup line founded by a Cuban-American influencer who is doing phenomenal. She just got into Target. We work with Botanica Beauty, which is a Latinx-owned hair care brand. The founder is Dominican. She also started as an influencer and started her line a year ago. We work with a curly hairstylist, which I was with all day today because she just launched a partnership with Bumble and Bumble, the hair care line, and she is like the curl expert here in New York City, and her name is The Hair Saint. And then just recently, we announced a new client named Second Wind. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the mask brand that somewhat went viral over the summer, was featured in Diet Prada. And I mean, they've been getting a lot of positive buzz, but it's a mask that was created during the pandemic. A very nice mask that you can just add as a fashion statement to your full outfit. And the founder is also Latina. She's Ecuadorian Colombian, based in New Jersey. And we started working with her as of a month ago. So in a nutshell, we work with some fun brands, for the most part, beauty, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for your insightful answer. And again, Lia, thank you so much again for that answer. I find it really interesting, Danielle, that you bring up that, sometimes most PR agencies don't really have this view of the consumer being Black or white or Asian or Muslim, etc. And it's kind of, I think it's kind of ironic because the biggest consumer base in the United States is Latino. So it's kind of ridiculous that some brands aren't a part of that, but I'd love to touch upon that in the later discussion. But for now, Lia, I'd love to ask you a couple questions, and then Danielle, I'll continue with you as well. So Lia, as the co-founder and chief operation officer at Pepper, I would love to hear about what your job entails and what your favorite part is.
Yeah, of course. So I think at the beginning stages of Pepper, when Pepper was still a really small company, the COO title implied nothing, right? Because we were, my co-founder and I were both working on overlapping things, and we were just kind of doing whatever needed to be done to grow the company. And I think as we have started, growing more and more, my role has solidified a little bit more into the operational side of things, which essentially means making sure that all of the processes in the back end are happening to meet the demand that marketing is creating. So we have a marketing team generating all this demand. And then on my side, it's my responsibility that we source the product correctly, that it arrives on time, that it gets manufactured correctly, that the customer service team knows how to handle, customer complaints, that the fulfillment process is working so that the product is getting in the hands of the customer. So I think out of all this, my favorite part is definitely working with the factory. So the factory is in Colombia, and I, travel there 4 or 5 times a year. We meet, and it really, really feels like we've built a partnership. It's, we work with a lot of kind of partners, but with them, it's this special bond, and we come from the same culture. So it's really nice to go and, visit the factory and just see the whole operation and see how the products are actually being made. So that's the part that's most exciting to me.
That's amazing. And to continue with the most exciting part of, you know, going to Medellin and having this relationship with the factory workers, I'd love to talk more about how your brand focuses on inclusivity and expanding opportunities for women in Latin America. Can you talk a little bit more about how Pepper meets these goals?
Yeah, so for us, it was always really important to build like a socially responsible supply chain. And I think, you know, I was passionate about building this in Colombia, not only because it's where I'm from, but it's also where I most like understand and have control over those conditions. So, you know, we partnered with a vertically integrated like factory in Colombia, which means that they handle everything from the sourcing all the way to the, you know, the manufacturing. Usually this process is it's very fragmented. So it happens like in different stages on a global scale. Whereas the partnership we have with them is vertically integrated, which means that when I go and visit them, you know, we're able to oversee the entire operation. And that's, you know, that's really great. But the factory also does really amazing programs with, you know, the women that they work with. They have a model where they employ single mothers who are head of households. So they're supporting kind of like their families. And so they hire them, they prioritize them in the hiring process. And the majority of the women who work there are single mothers, which is really important for them to you know, empower and advance these women. And they also have like training programs with the government where they are recruiting women, training them, giving them the skills that they need, and then offering them a full-time job. So that's like super special. And we've been working more closely with our factory to also kind of like close the loop and, you know, give back directly to the women who are, you know, manufacturing the bras, which is really important for us. And so we're always kind of thinking about ways to empower them because they're at kind of like the core, you know, of the like the ladder, and they make everything possible for us. So we're always kind of like looking at ways to give back. And then one recent program that we launched that we're super excited about is a grant program for Black female entrepreneurs. So Jacqueline and I, when we first started Pepper, we took $5,000 out of our savings and we turned that into what, you know, into a company. And so essentially we wanted to give that $5,000 back to women who are who may not have, you know, access to the same opportunities that we did and the privilege that, you know, that we had. So we just selected a finalist, and the program is not only like this $5,000 stipend, but it also comes with opportunities for mentorship and like connecting them to like a broader network. So those are some of the things that, you know, we're trying to do to help, you know, advance women. Not only is our brand about empowering our customers, but we want to look at every kind of internally, we want to look at every step of the way, you know, how we hire, how we can give back, you know, how we can empower our supply chain and our factory workers. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Lia, for answering my question. I think that's amazing. I read about it in some articles of yours and on the Pepper website. And I think it's really great for everyone else to know what Pepper is doing with regards to inclusivity and expanding opportunities for just women in general. And it's just awesome. So Danielle, I would like to ask you a similar question. I would love to hear what your job entails at the Bonita Project and what your favorite part is.
So what my job entails is I'm very tactical with what we do at the Bonita Project, meaning like I'm all about like getting shit done. Like we have to get press. Like when clients literally hire me because it's like, hey, we want press. Like we need to get exposure. And it's like, okay, I got to get all my contacts together and like literally blast out the news. Like I still pitch. I'm still talking to the press like every other day. Like I'm coordinating segments, I'm coordinating interviews, and that can include like an email interview, a phone interview, a podcast interview, you know, with my clients. And it's all about getting the buzz out, getting the word out of my clients, especially since I'm working with brands that are just starting out, that are brand new, that are small, that have zero exposure. And that's kind of also what makes it fun. And I enjoy it. I enjoy being part of this journey with them. I love working with small brands. Listen, coming from working for brands like the giants, like the ones that I mentioned, like L'Oreal and Garnier and all these, you know, big giants, like, yeah, they're fun because they have big budgets, but any big client that like that, it gives you more work and more headaches. But I mean, listen, for those that enjoy it, great. But for me, I think that, you know, with these smaller brands, they're more open to hearing what you want and like your ideas. They trust you. They're more open, again, to hearing your ideas. They want to explore more. They're not afraid, you know, they don't have to go through too many levels of approval here and there. So I think that's what makes it a lot more fun. And I love being part of their journey and creating their story. So for example, the two brands that I mentioned earlier, Alamar Cosmetics and Botanica Beauty. Alamar, I started working with them in 2019 last year. And the first 6 months that we started working together, I was already pitching, I was already talking to the press and the media and like letting them know that, hey, I represent this new Latinx owned beauty brand named Alamar Cosmetics. And they're like, okay, cool, we'll keep it on our radar. But no one was giving me much attention until maybe 8 months later that they launched a new collection that was like when everybody was like, oh, wait, you rep Alamar, right? Like, can we get more info? And then the founder was getting all the interviews, and I was a part of that. I was a part of that conversation. I was a part of that experience for her. And I really enjoy that. I love watching these brands grow. And then fast forward to 2020, the brand just announced a partnership with Target. And now you can find the actual brand at Target, which is insane, which is amazing. And, you know, what helped getting her into Target was the fact that she had gotten all this press recognition, because Target and all these big retailers, if you're ever looking to get a brand into a large retailer like a Target, or even like, you know, a Saks, for example, like any retailer, they're looking to see how you're being talked about on social media. Do you have social media presence? Are you getting the press buzz? Are you getting, you know, they value those type of mentions and those type of recognitions in the press. So again, it was great to hear that kind of feedback, and great to see that a year later this brand went into Target. So aside from getting them press, I also do a lot of influencer outreach, because again, the world of PR has definitely evolved in the last 10 years. Ever since I started, like, I went from doing traditional PR, and that consisted of just, you know, talking to all the print magazines and like pitching and, you know, getting my clients in the press, which that still is there. But a lot of it has evolved because, let's face it, the media landscape has evolved. It's no longer what it was 10 years ago. Half of the magazines that existed back in 2011 when I first started are no longer there. So what are brands doing now? I mean, ever since, I want to say 5 years ago, a lot of big brands are now putting all their budgets and all their priorities into influencer campaigns. Like influencers in general, whether it's beauty, fashion, they do generate sales. They help with sales. It's like pretty much what it used to be to put pay for an advertisement in a top publication. Like, that doesn't work anymore. I feel like that's just such an old school way to do things. So now, you know, I have to also pitch influencer strategy to my brand. So what does that look like? It's like, let's say a beauty brand or one of my clients is coming out with a new launch and they need influencer support. We help vet and find the right influencer partners for them, and work with them on a paid capacity. Of course, like, the influencers get paid. We make sure that they deliver the content, that they get the content brief, that they get the messaging right. And then it's like me kind of adding that to do on my plate, because sometimes the brands are also like, they have too much going on. Like, they don't have time, believe it or not, to be talking to influencers and telling them what to do. So like, I kind of come in there and do that for them. So building those influencer relationships, creating those campaigns, and making sure that, again, going back to the word buzz, just getting as much buzz around my clients and the brands and their story.
Thank you so much, Danielle. You answered the second question, which is awesome. But yeah, I want to continue on more with regards to the themes of Latinx culture and beauty and what it means to both of you and how that translates to your ventures. So I'm going to ask, I would love to hear 3 words you associate with Latinx beauty, and how do you feel about them? Does it make you feel happy? Does it make you feel sad? Are you mad? Are you frustrated with them?
That this question is for me?
Yeah, it's for Lia and Danielle. I think Lia could go first and then Danielle.
Okay.
I mean, I think, you know, I think when I hear about what, like, the how like the media or like society thinks about Latin beauty is like, you know, Sofia Vergara or like Shakira, right? It's curvy, it's energetic, it's colorful, it's confident. And there's parts of that I really like, you know, like I think it's, you know, sometimes portrayed as a very empowering thing, and like, you know, it kind of like highlights positive things about Latin women. But, you know, I think it's just like an over generalization. I think there's so much more that, you know, Latin women have to offer, and there's so many like different ways that we can look at beauty. And the generalization, I guess, is what I don't like. Same with Colombia, right? Everyone's like coffee, you know, drugs, you know, like there's always these like really high level generalizations that are very ignorant, and there's just a lot more that, you know, Colombian women or like Latin, you know, or men or women, right, or the Latin American culture has to offer. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Lia. I definitely agree with you. And Danielle, if you want to continue.
I mean, yeah, to that point, I think, you know, when I hear Latinx beauty, I think, you know, the word diversity, it's very diverse. I mean, it is what it is. It's very diverse. I mean, we have, you know, there's Afro-Latinos that have for so long have been neglected, and up until like I want to say 3 years ago was the actual term Afro-Latino established in our vocabulary. Like we weren't labeling Afro-Latinos back then. We didn't even hear about Afro-Latinos like that. Maybe Celia Cruz. I mean, listen, I could be wrong, but like for so long, Afro-Latinos were always often overlooked. And me I'm Peruvian, and let's not forget, like I'm, you know, I do recognize I'm a fair-skinned Peruvian, but my mother is more trigueña. She's much more darker than me, and my mother comes from a very indigenous background. And let's not forget, like there's also a lot of indigenous people within our community that have been so like, if Afro-Latinos have been overlooked, even indigenous people have been too. And like just yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day. And like for me, like I love to see like in the last 2 years, a lot of Latinx platforms, and it's now crossing over to the general market platforms, have been highlighting indigenous beauty. Like when we saw Yalitza Aparicio, and I'm sorry if I said her last name wrong, but I know Yalitza, she was in that movie, the Mexican indigenous actress that she did that movie Roma. Yes, thank you, Jessica. Roma. She did the movie Roma. And when I kid you not, when she was on the cover of Vogue 2 years ago, Vogue Mexico, I started crying. I was like, this is huge. Like this is a big statement for the world to see. Like it's not just the Sofia Vergara's and the J-Los. I mean, yes, like obviously they're there. They've been there for a very long time. Not to discredit them. I'm a big Shakira fan, but you know, it whitewashes the culture. It really does whitewash the culture. And that's a big issue. And I think now with this new generation coming in, especially, like I gotta give it to the Gen Zers because I love you guys. Like you guys are much more woke and much more outspoken and holding people accountable. So anyways, going back to beauty, I do think, you know, I think the word that comes to me is going to be diverse. You have to, you know, there's Asian Latinos in Peru, like in Mexico, there's Asian Latinos everywhere. So just know that there, you know, a lot of different cultures are infused in different countries that a lot of people are just so unaware. And going back to the brands, now brands are like, oh, hey, so can you find us an Afro-Latina to partner with too? Because yeah, like you can't just pick one influencer, aka Camila Coelho, for example. I get it. She's beautiful. She's Brazilian. She's hot. She has a ton of followers, but it's like they think of her as like, okay, she's the go-to Latina influencer. And it's like, no, that's not just her. There's so many other people in the mix that you guys are not even paying close attention to. So again, me as the multicultural educator, have to always plug them in and tell them, like, let's highlight an indigenous woman this time. Let's highlight an Afro-Latina. So, you know, it's baby steps, but anyways.
Yeah, thank you so much, Danielle and Lia. I 100% agree with you. In Guatemala, we're surrounded by smaller communities, and them being indigenous, I've been around these people for so many years. Every summer when I go to Guate, and they're honestly one of the most amazing people, so genuine, so beautiful. And it's so unfortunate that today in our age, when people think of Latinx, they immediately think of Sofia Vergara, Shakira, all these women, when in reality, like you said, Danielle, there's so many beautiful Afro-Latina, Indigenous, Asian women in the Latinx community who are being overlooked by our society. And yeah, I definitely agree with all of you with that. So to go on to my next question, I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about how your culture and heritage impact your relationship with beauty and fashion, and how it eventually translates to your company, my bad. Lia, if you could go first, and then Danielle.
Yeah, I think, part of growing up in Colombia, I would hear things like, I think people say it as a joke, but it's like, the perfect body is like 90, 60, 90. It's like 90 centimeters in your breast, where like your breasts are, 60 centimeters in your waist, and 90 centimeters like on the bottom, right? And I think that there's a lot of prominence in, plastic surgery in Colombian women, and, growing up with that. I think part of what we're trying to do at Pepper is tell women, you don't have to, you can be beautiful regardless of the size of, your bra, right? And so I think that's how it's translated into our kind of mission and the significance of it, that it's being produced in Colombia, where breast augmentation is one of like the most kind of common surgeries that people have. And, I've had even the factory workers, when we first started working with our factory, I don't think they, like, the people who made the bras really understood like what the differentiation was. And I've had some of them will like try it on, because we do like fittings and stuff like that, and they're like, you can't even imagine what it felt like to wear a bra that fits. Like, they don't know what it's like to wear a bra that fits, because most bras are being made for women who are a lot curvier, with molds that are, deeper, with like, so you're unable to fill it. So you kind of know it's not made for your body. But I think that is kind of like the main, among others, right? But like the main stereotypes that we're trying to tackle is, you need to be like curvy in the traditional way. You don't need to have like big breasts to like feel beautiful, or for others to see you as, beautiful. And our mission is for our community to like embrace their bodies as they are, and to like help the world recognize that beauty comes in all forms and shapes and sizes. And we really support when we see a brand serving an audience that is underserved, and we see that in makeup, right, where you now are seeing products that cater to darker skin tones. We see that in the plus size category, where companies are specifically designing for plus size. And so we celebrate those things. And then we also want to show up for our audience and tell them, we're here for you as well. And we celebrate this type of beauty as well.
Thank you so much, Lia. That's really inspiring. Danielle, do you want to continue?
Yeah, so for me, it's very important with my platform and my company to constantly showcase different Latinx voices outside of like the common nationalities that we always continue to hear from. And I say this because, growing up in Miami and growing up in New York, I had a lot of Colombian friends, I had a lot of Cuban friends, I had a lot of Puerto Rican friends, and then moving to New York, I had a lot of Dominican friends, but I never saw a lot of Peruvians within my circle. And it's, I think as a younger kid, like telling people like, oh, I'm from Peru, they'd be like, oh, where is that in the map? Like, a lot of people didn't know, including some Latinos. They were like, what is, I'm also talking about when I was a kid, like I'm in elementary school, people would be like, what? I don't know, they're not from Colombia? I'm like, no. Like, a lot of my childhood best friends are from Colombia. So anyways, a lot of people didn't know where Peru was, or didn't know what Peru is. And until Machu Picchu became a wonder of the world, it's like, oh, that's in Peru. And it's like, yes, that's in Peru. So anyways, always having to be like, don't forget about Peru. And also, like, just random things to throw out there. Every time we would hear a reggaeton song like Boricua, Morena, Cubana, Dominicana, it's like, Peru. Okay, no, you guys don't. Okay, no one's gonna acknowledge my country. Okay, like I always felt some type of way. I was like, this is like, where are the Peruvians at? So, anyways, I'm very now with the Bonita Project. I'm very big on like, I have to talk about all the countries. We have to talk about all the nationalities. Like, for example, if you guys have been following the Bonita Project from when we first started, ever since we started, over the summer, we have this Latin American Independence Day project that we work on, which is we highlight Independence Days for each country, starting with Venezuela, because Venezuela is actually, their Independence Day is on July 5th. And I mean, I know we all know Venezuela's going through stuff right now, but we do this as a way to like highlight different voices, because at the end of the day, I think we can all agree as Latinos, we're very loud and proud of where we're from. We love to rock our jerseys, where we're from. We like to rock la bandera, the flag on our car. Like, we're very loud and proud. So I started this Latin American Independence Day project so that we can give a platform, like our platform, to other people from different countries to talk about their culture and talk about where they're from. So this past summer, we did the project again, but this time we focused on Afro-Latinas from different countries. So we partnered up with an Afro-Latina from Venezuela to do a takeover on our Instagram. We partnered with an Afro-Latina from Colombia, an Afro-Latina from Argentina. People were like, there's Afro-Latinas in Argentina. And we're like, yes, they're all across Latin America. We partnered with an Afro-Latina in Peru and Ecuador. And then we did when it was time to highlight Central America, which is on September 15th. For those that don't know, they have their Independence Day on September 15th. We highlighted like multiple bonitas from Costa Rica, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, all 5 of them. We highlighted Afro-Latinas. And that was a very important project for us to use our platform to educate others. And I know that, we have brands that follow us that are not Latinos. And I have a lot of my old white colleagues that follow my platform that are not, that were super clueless to this. And when they started tuning into the IG takeovers, they were like, oh, wow, like this is so insightful. Had no idea, because again, we consume what we see in the media, and what we see in the media is like the most common countries that we hear. And especially like living in a city like New York, where it's predominantly Dominican and Puerto Rican, and Colombian and Ecuadorian and Queens, like we kind of miss out on the other cultures. And there's so many cultures that play into what being Latinx means. So again, I guess that answers your question, like being the only Peruana in the class and being like, you know what, I feel for the other countries. It's not just Peruvians. I'm sure Guatemala feels the same, and like all these other countries feel like left out. And it's like, hey, don't forget about us. We also exist. Again, that's why the Bonita Project exists, and it's as an educational platform, I guess, like an Instagram that exists for you to tap in and learn about different cultures that make up the Latinx community.
Amazing. Thank you both for answering. Now we're going to move on to a different segment, and it's going to be based on advice. I'd love to know, what were 2 things you wish you had known before starting your company, and why? Lia, you could go first, and then Danielle.
Yeah, so things I wish I knew, I think when I first started working on Pepper, I thought things would go a lot faster. And I got kind of caught up in this dream and, wanting to be an entrepreneur and, wanting to quit really fast and wanting to make it really fast. And what I didn't know was how long some things just take. I think it takes more time than you think or expect to grow a really kind of like sustainable operation and to get to like every stage. And I think it's healthy that it takes longer. I think we're used to kind of like these models where you have to grow from like 1 to 100, in the first 2 days. And that, I think there's something healthy about doing it more gradually. Not to say that we haven't grown insanely fast, but I would say I wish I'd known kind of like this factor of time, because I think there's there's the really good kind of like balance when you're first starting your business. We stayed at our full-time jobs, as much as we could. But I think that having this time factor will help kind of orient and, help make decisions. I think another one is that I was always a perfectionist, and I think that I was really scared to, push something out that wasn't fully finished or fully thought out. And I think the Kickstarter was a really important lesson for me, because a lot of the things, our samples before we launched on Kickstarter were not even finalized, and we were having to go on the photo shoot and kind of having to do like weird things in the back of the, you know, the model, kind of like, you know, making everything look as best as possible, even though we knew it wasn't perfect. And then worrying about those details later. So once the Kickstarter was successful, then we focused, okay, now let's make the product perfect. And a lot of people think, I want to get the product perfect before launching this. So I think that knowing that, not, you know, when you have a startup, it's never going to be perfect, even as you grow and grow and grow. Like it surprises me that like how scrappy we still are, even though we're so, you know, we're much larger today. So the second lesson would be letting go of the idea that like everything has to be perfect before launching. I think there's a lot of learnings that you can have when things are imperfect. You can get more customer feedback, you can refine and reiterate on what you're working on with feedback. So yeah, those would be my lessons.
Thank you, Lia. Danielle, if you could go next.
So 2 things I would have liked to know before kicking this journey off. One would be not being too afraid to ask for help. I think again, as an entrepreneur, you want to do everything yourself. I mean, you have to, you have no other choice. You're doing things that are not just your day-to-day, right? Like I was used to sitting on my computer and going through my to-do list and just having to do the basics of the day, which was like pitching, organizing my status reports, emailing with clients, and that's it. But when you're your own boss and you have to not only handle, your clients, you also have to do all the administrative work that, what your assistant would do, right? Back when I was working on my old job, I had an assistant. I worked on the team. So, each of us had a role. Now I'm working by myself and I had to do all those 3 roles compiled into one. And it was just a lot. It was a lot. And I didn't go into this journey with too much money saved up. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't have the crazy amount of savings. I would have liked to have a lot more savings, because that way I could have contracted. I could have gotten contractors to help me. And now, a year and a half into the whole business, I do have contractors that help me because I have to. That's the only way I'm going to grow. So I don't have full-time employees, but I do have contractors. Like I have someone that manages the social media for the Bonita Project. And I have a contractor that helps me with another client that helps me do like the admin stuff, because again, it's a lot for me to handle. And if I want to grow, like I have to learn how to just like delegate and let other people handle certain things. Because if you want to carry all that weight to yourself, you're going to drive yourself insane. And that's just, it's not healthy. And it's not healthy. So I had to get contractors to help me. And again, I wish I would have known like to have more money saved up, but also letting go. Like I think to Lia's point too, like having to be a perfectionist and having to make sure you micromanage and making sure everything happens to the T. It's impossible. You have to let it go. You have to let it go. Some things will go effed up, some things will not. So like you have to trust the process and also, learn how to delegate to others. And that's another thing, another thing that I wish I would have known was like how to delegate my time and how to say no. I'm a yes, I'm down. Yes, I'll do everything. And like one thing that you have to all realize, if you're going to be your own boss and you're going to be an entrepreneur and starting your own brand, time is precious. You can't be lending your time for free all the time. And that's one thing that I was doing a lot. I mean, the first year that I launched the Bonita Project, I was scared. I was trying to like do networking still and connect with people. And sometimes these people want something from you instead of you getting something from them. And it's like, wait a second, like, I don't know how to further explain this, but just be very selfish with your time is what I'm saying. Like, I think it's important to be selfish with your time, keep yourself with peace of mind. Like, you're only one person. You can't lend yourself and have everybody become so available, because it's impossible, like to manage it all. And on top of that, managing your clients and your cash flow and whatnot, like it's a lot. So yeah, I also, just being careful with who you let in and who you trust is something very important. And, something that you also, like, I wish I would have known, but also you have to learn it through time. And over time, are you going to learn how to build trust and also how to lend your time and be flexible with certain things. But again, be selfish with your time.
Thank you so much, both Leah and Danielle, for your wonderful insight. I think I've definitely learned some of these things, even still being in college, but again, as you grow and as you learn, these are things that become very evident. I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience. If you all feel comfortable, please write your questions in the chat, or if you want, you could say it. I think you can just put on your camera and then just ask any questions, or I could read it from the chat. I'll give like a couple of minutes, like hopefully 1 or 2.
Hi. I just had a question for the both of you. I was sort of curious. You both are starting what I assume are like relatively like newer businesses, and I wonder what that's like in a time when I'm seeing, like, for example, like TikTok is becoming a lot more popular, like this past year, I would say. And it's definitely it's a very new form of social media. And I wonder what that's like from like a business standpoint. Like, what do you guys like think about when you watch a social media starting to gain traction, just like TikTok is right now? Like, what are those discussions like for you guys?
Yeah, so yeah, at the start of COVID, I think, well, our sales kind of like blew up when COVID happened, because everyone's kind of online and shopping and e-commerce, shopping online. But we started seeing everyone spending all this time on TikTok, and we were like, we've got to kind of like be on this channel. And we did, we partnered with a couple of influencers who were doing TikTok videos, and we did a really funny one that kind of went viral, which was the mirror challenge one, with someone wearing an old bra that didn't fit, and then you would swipe, and she was wearing like a pepper bra, and she would look, super confident. And we did that one, and it like we promoted it on we cross promoted it on different kind of channels, and it did really well. It was like really resonating. But I think TikTok was really important during quarantine, because it was kind of like a really fun kind of social media. Like, there are a lot of dark things going on Instagram, for example, but on TikTok there was a lot of uplifting kind of things and dancing and stuff like that. So we try to kind of like embrace that, and we're always staying on top of these newer channels that are coming out, and trying to adapt the type of content so that it fits our brand and it works for us as an acquisition channel. But yeah, super interesting.
So, Lena, I love that you asked that question, because I'm literally obsessed with TikTok, like to the point where my friends think I'm annoying and that I'm a wannabe Gen Zer. It's actually very embarrassing. But I love that question, because every single event that I've been talking on, I actually bring up TikTok. I haven't brought up TikTok this time, but TikTok is the best. So for me, actually, with these beauty brands and whatnot, like we just, now I had to add TikTok to my research, because for TikTok influencers, a lot of, up until now, we were only working with Instagram influencers and YouTube influencers. But now with TikTok, TikTok is a whole other ball game. And there's a lot of TikTok content creators that are just amazing, and they might not have a big following on Instagram, but on TikTok they have a presence, and they're just simply amazing. So for example, I'm in the middle of doing a Clinique Hispanic Heritage Month campaign with a few influencers, and Clinique gave me the opportunity to tap into some TikTokers. So we're working with a few. I don't know if you guys follow Jenny Solares or Alexia del Valle, and then another girl, what's her name? Estefania Saavedra. I don't know. These 3 girls they're comedian influencers. Like, one of them did a Harry Potter Latino trend that went viral on TikTok, and we're working with her for Clinique. And like, I love the fact that Clinique gave me the freedom to pick and choose who I wanted to, like who I follow on TikTok. I'm like, can I just pick, please? Like, I feel like we need to get creative this time with like the kind of partners that we bring on board. It's not your typical like beauty influencer who's always talking about beauty products all day, which no discredit to them, but I want to explore something different. And because TikTok is such a new platform, I feel like brands are definitely dabbling into them. Like, even talking to my client at Clinique. They're just like, TikTok is amazing. Like, there's just so much underrated talent there. Like, and we don't think it's going to get banned. Like, we think TikTok is it's here to stay. There's a lot of content creators that are coming out of there, and a lot of brands that are doing partnerships now on TikTok. So don't discredit that. If you're looking to work with influencers, if you're looking to tap into that, start doing your research and start looking into the TikTokers that make sense for your campaigns, for your brands. Because that's what I'm doing right now. And my algorithm, like Lia said, like, you know, TikTok is it's a completely different vibe. My algorithm, I like to say, is very woke. I get more educated on things that are happening in today's world, and like even like history lessons. Like, there'll be like, there's some TikTokers that are students that are putting us on like to things that we didn't know, and I'd be like, what? Like, I'm learning things that I didn't even learn in school on TikTok. So that's why I love TikTok, and I think TikTok is honestly the future. I think it's the future. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but yes, I'm very much involved on TikTok.
Thank you so much, Danielle and Lia, for your answers. I'm going to open up the floor for one more question just due to time. If anyone wants to put on their camera, or also just put in the chat and I can read it out loud. If not, I can also ask a question. Okay. Well, just for sake of time, I'm going to ask one more question that's like super quick. The question is, based on advice, since we're college students, what would you implore us to do as we continue our education, look into our careers, and try to impact our surrounding communities?
My advice is to build a 5-year plan. And I like really hated this. I didn't know what this meant when I was in college, and I hated when people said that. But if you think about where you want to be in 5 years and you work backwards from there and you kind of like build towards that, I think there's a certain amount of like flexibility that, you know, you have to have. Like when I started working at McKinsey, I thought that was going to be my path for the next 10 years. And I think I was open to different opportunities, but I think there was kind of like a 5-year plan in my head that I didn't quite kind of like write down, and I was open to certain things. But it's good to go through that exercise to figure out like what are those opportunities that are worth kind of taking on, and then doing that exercise will also help you be like visionary, and in any job that you have, thinking like strategically and kind of like far ahead towards a goal, and how to like work backwards from there will be really like a really helpful skill.
Thank you. And Danielle, do you want to close it off?
That's a great tip, Lia. Wish I would have gotten that. Oh my God. Let's see. I think, you know, for those, and I'm going to be very, like, for the most part, for those that are looking to dabble into the industry that I'm in, and even in the industry that Lia's in, like, you know, both fashion and beauty or PR or marketing, whatever the case may be, like, now is the time to network. You guys are at the prime age to have all the energy in the world. And I know right now in-person events are out of the picture and we're all attending virtual events. But if you can pack your agenda, like I, for example, would make like a rule of mine to attend one event or go to one dinner a week with one person that I can meet with. Networking is the basis of everything that we do. Like, your contacts is the foundation of PR. Like, that's the foundation of PR and what we do today, and like how we get things done. And it's through the contacts that I have. I can't complain. I have a great roster of contacts, and I keep meeting new people, keep meeting new faces. And if you're also very passionate about improving the Latinx community, or like, you know, helping others, etc., like, try to find your way in there, finesse your way. You'd be surprised at how many people you might end up meeting and that need the help. And yeah, again, going back to networking, I know there's a lot of access to free events, especially for students. Just yesterday, I was talking at a PRSSA event for FIU. And again, there's like a ton of events happening back to back for students. And I'm not saying to attend all of them, you know, again, time is precious, but now is the time. You guys are at the right age to be networking, to connecting with people. You know, I feel like now the younger generation, like the Gen Zers, are much more bold with sending DMs via Instagram there. I'm just like, oh, I used to never send DMs back then, but sure, if you want to send a DM and connect with me, that's like, I appreciate those things. I feel like that's, you know, depending on how you write the DM, of course, but, you know, definitely use Instagram, stalk people if you need to. If you want to get your foot in the door after graduation, like, you need to do your research beforehand and know who the hell you're targeting. So do your research, follow the right people, finesse your way in there, and network as much as you can. Try to get access to all those events virtually, because there's so many. And also, don't neglect LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a miraculous tool that people often neglect and don't use. And especially if you're going to start job hunting upon graduation, like, LinkedIn is the best way to go about it. Like, start doing your research now. And yeah.
Thank you both so much for your answers. And I'm just gonna outro us right now. I wanna thank you both for attending and for taking the time to speak with us and offering your invaluable experiences. This is to the general audience and also to Lia and Danielle. If you're interested in learning more about Latinx media and entrepreneurship, please register to come to our next speaker event. This upcoming Thursday, we'll be hosting Comunidades Digitales, celebrating and preserving the diversity and complexity of the Latinx identity. The co-speakers, Dijali Brown Cepeda, founder and curator of Nueva Yorkinos, and Frances Sola Santiago, co-founder and editor-in-chief at Emperifola. Hope to see you all there, and thank you again so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.